Hudson Bay in Canada and beyond to the Arctic Circle. Then with the 3D view, you can actually see there's been a little center. We've been able to see some eye in this storm periodically, and then it seems to go away. Some people are surprised this storm, though moving north, gained a little strength overnight last night, and it did that because it moved into the warmer waters of the Gulf Stream. It's this little current of warm water that runs just off the eastern seaboard, and it gives that storm the little oomph it needs before it starts to head toward the coastline. All experts are still pointing this storm toward the shoreline just at around midnight to 1 o'clock this morning, somewhere near that Atlantic City area. Now, all morning long, we're going to show you pictures of damage from this storm, and remember, all of these pictures we show you this morning are with this storm more than 200 miles off the coastline. Hurricane Sandy is currently more than 200 miles east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, but already its effects have been devastating. Look at this house in Rodanthe, North Carolina. Parts are breaking off and falling into the ocean. Dare County, North Carolina saw nearly 6 inches of rain in the past 24 hours.
We got about 8 to 9 inches of water on our property.
There are many places like Norfolk, Virginia, where low-lying streets are already flooded, and there are thousands of customers without power. 85-mile-an-hour winds are already churning the surf. Sandy's winds could be up to 90 miles an hour this afternoon, just short of a Category 2. All of this power, all of this damage, and Sandy is still well offshore. What makes Sandy special? This time of year, most tropical storms and hurricanes move east out to sea. Sandy's traveling north and will turn west, so its effects will be felt over a large land area. And this storm is monster-sized. Clouds stretching over 2,000 miles, tropical storm force winds more than 1,000 miles. And as Sandy makes its way up the eastern seaboard, it is colliding with an Arctic cold front from the west. Add in the 150-mile-plus winds of the jet stream, and Sandy is a superstorm.
This storm is going to be destructive, historic, and unfortunately life-threatening.
And we've got to talk about wind and rain from this storm first. Those are first the likely things that will cause the most damage early on in this storm. Quick look at its wind field and it'll show you this is not a coastal system. Watch this thing come on shore and then it spreads winds all the way in toward, well, look at that. Chicago, you're getting winds from this all the way down south. Atlanta, you'll be feeling the winds from this storm. Take a look at the rainfall. And again, this is not just a coastal storm. The heaviest rain is definitely where this storm will come on shore, though. And in that case, it's 6 to 12 inches of rain. That's exactly where our Ginger Z is this morning, right on the shore of New Jersey and Atlantic City. The exact spot forecasters feel this storm will come on shore. Ginger?
That's right, Sam. This thing's still 250 miles away from us, but it will be ground zero tonight when it comes on shore. It's a very violent ocean that's already kicking up big surf. Imagine, though, a 4 to even 8-foot wall of water, add a 10 to 20-foot wave, and come with me, push all that water right up on that barrier and over onto the iconic Atlantic City Boardwalk. That is just one of the reasons that 27,000 people evacuated just Atlantic City, and up and down the Jersey coast, they're barrier islands. They have a second threat. There is wind and water coming not just from the ocean side, but from the bay side. And officials here are so scared that it would flood from both sides. That's why they asked everyone to get out as of yesterday at 4 p.m. This is a really serious situation, and if I can allow you to let me get a little nerdy here, it's a 960.7 millibar record low here in Atlantic City. We're going to smash that when that thing comes on shore. Sam?
Yeah, no, Ginger, you're absolutely right with all those superlatives and sandwiched in between water. Not just that community, Chris, but even places like New York City. Storm surge a real problem.
Absolutely, not to be nerdy, just common sense. Shouldn't be standing even in shallow surf right now because the pool's going to get greater and greater. Here in New York City, still a couple of hours away from high tide, water's already coming over the edge. The problem is big metro areas like New York City, Atlantic City, Philly, they're low-lying already. So any significant surge, and this place is going to fill up like a basin.
And it will. As a matter of fact, where we're standing right here, there are some places that will see the water exactly what Chris is talking about.
So we're going to take a look now and see exactly what storm surge can do. Sandy's storm surge will be wind and water at their worst.
The ocean literally coming inland here, causing some massive flooding. So that likely the biggest threat to loss of life.
Storm surge forces bodies of water higher and farther than normal. We're talking 10, 15 feet or higher. An extremely deadly wall of water powerfully invading inland areas. Surge effect claims 90% of all hurricane deaths. To make matters worse, Sandy, with her high winds, is getting a head start. A full moon. During a full moon, gravitational pull on the ocean is at its strongest, producing unusually high tides, adding up to 2 to 4 feet before Sandy even gets here. Along the Jersey Shore, residents dug in, creating protective sand berms. Long Islanders sealed up windows and lined streets with sandbags. Anything to stop a fist from the sea with the full weight of the ocean behind it.
We packed 35 sandbags and brought them back to the house. Then we put plastic and sandbags and boarded up.
Sandy could turn Lower Manhattan into a virtual flood zone, with experts predicting considerable inland flooding in an area that has little elevation. Last year, Hurricane Irene had less than 5 feet of surge, but just that extra wind combining with a full moon tide made driving through the Wall Street area an adventure. Now, last year, you and I were standing almost exactly here together. Very different situation. This surge isn't going to bring just water, it's going to bring force. And that's why we don't know how it can affect an area like this. Already been evacuations. People aren't living in the area where we are right now. But if the forecasters, not you, Sam, but just everybody in general, even close to accurate, this place is going to look very different tomorrow, maybe permanently.
Yeah, and Chris, we're standing right here as the water's coming right up on the edge. Last year when we were here, that water was 2 or 3 feet below that, didn't really get to the top until the middle of the storm.
Absolutely.
All right, Amy?
All right, Sam and Chris, thanks so much. And we want to take a look live at Times Square, because normally at this hour, it's crammed with traffic. Well, look at that. It is a virtual ghost town. Sandy has forced city officials to shut down the subways for the second time in the city's history. Josh is out in Times Square right now with the very latest. And Josh, you're pretty much all alone out there.
Yeah, it's virtually empty here in Times Square, Amy, as we just saw. And as the first raindrops begin to fall, you take a look at this subway station behind me, virtually empty. Any other day, again, it would be bustling with commuters. But this station today is like every other station throughout this city, all a part of New York's plan to deal with this superstorm. This morning, the largest transit system in the country shut down. Threats of massive flooding closing New York's 850 miles of subways, trains, and buses through Tuesday morning, affecting some 9 million commuters.
This is nothing to play with, and this is nothing to take lightly.
New York City trains are especially vulnerable to floods and damage as the underground stations lie under the water line. Overnight, the MTA says it prepared with 300 pump rooms and portable track pumps to deal with the worst-case scenario. Water damage causing commuters to be stranded indefinitely.
You don't want to damage the equipment and then have a real problem getting the system up and running.
Major cities up and down the East Coast are taking similar precautions. New Jersey's transit system that moves nearly 1 million commuters every day also coming to a halt.
New Jersey Transit has implemented a system-wide shutdown. We need folks to be prepared to stay home and to stay safe.
In Philadelphia, nearly 350,000 commuters are looking for other ways to get around this morning, and further south in D.C., the Washington Metro is closed off for some 800,000 riders. Now, as Amy mentioned, again, this is just the second time in the city's history that all commuter service has been shut down. Just over a year ago, it happened in the advent of Hurricane Irene. But George, as millions of people throughout the city look to get to work today, officials hope they'll just stay home.
I'll bet. Okay, Josh, thanks. That's the story on the ground. Sandy causing a real mess for flyers, too. Some planes were still in the air Sunday night, but look this morning. The sky's much, much emptier this morning. You see it thinning out right there. 6,500 flights already canceled. ABC's Jim Avila has more of the details from Reagan National Airport in Washington. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, George. We're pretty much at a ground stop all across the eastern seaboard, with trains, planes, buses, even cruise ships being told to go away. And look at this place. This is Reagan National, 7 o'clock on a Monday morning. This should be jammed full of people, as you can see, almost totally empty. And as we walk over here through the other part of the concourse, the board here is really a wall of cancellations. All of the flights canceled here except for a handful getting out. So it's really been quite a mess, and people are being told to stay away from the airports.
This morning, much of the nation at a standstill. The ferocious superstorm crippling much of America's transportation system. Amtrak trains and airports from North Carolina to Boston virtually shut down. Nearly 7,000 flights canceled. Most either fly from or through one of the hubs in Sandy's path.
You prepare, and then they can change.
And all those cancellations are creating a ripple effect. forcing delays as far west as Seattle and San Francisco. Stranded passengers, for the most part, taking it in stride.
It's not the airline's fault. You can't really control the weather.
On Sunday, JetBlue and United moved their planes out of the strike zone until Tuesday. But at low-lying airports like New York's LaGuardia and JFK, there's also concern about the storm's surge.
The thing that we're going to be watching very, very closely is going to be the flooding and the flood potential here in New York. And with these airports basically at sea level, that poses a major risk to us.
Even when flights resume, JetBlue's CEO, Rob Murister, says delays could last through the end of the week.
And it'll take us a couple days, probably till at least Thursday, if not Friday, to get back to normal with something this large.
Meantime, plans to travel by train have been derailed too. Amtrak shut down all East Coast service. Normally more than 300 trains would be running today.
And because airlines don't want their passengers or their planes stranded, they started the cancellations early yesterday, and as we heard, it won't finish up until probably Thursday or Friday, George.
Okay, Jim, thanks very much.
All right, and so much of the East Coast is bracing, obviously, for the impact and aftermath of Sandy. And let's go now to ABC's Matt Gutman. He's in Nags Head, North Carolina, with the latest there right now, and those seas have been incredible to watch. And Matt, I know you've had a first-hand view.
You just said 10 seconds, and I thought you should go. Good morning, Amy. To give you a sense of what's in store for the rest of the Northeast, we have been battered here by tropical storm conditions for 36 continuous hours. This rain, the wind, these waves, 6 inches of rain in the past 24 hours alone. Now, these waves have cut off entire coastal communities, flooded roads, and get this, just about 150 miles due east of where we are, the HMS Bounty, that replica ship, is out at sea without propulsion right now. They have issued an SOS order asking for some help. Now, what they've been telling the Coast Guard is that they are taking on water. The Coast Guard is trying to get to them, trying to decide how best to reach them, but it might not even be today. Sam?
We're now joined this morning by Dr. Rick Knabb, Director of the National Hurricane Center. Good morning, Dr. Knabb, and thank you so much for joining us. Rick, let me just ask you a couple questions about this storm. We're hearing all these terms, superstorm, and everyone's familiar with hurricane. They're familiar with nor'easter, but the term superstorm is going to catch them by surprise here. Describe that a little bit more for me.
Well, what we are dealing with is a large hurricane that might lose its tropical characteristics as it moves ashore, but it's not going to matter. It's going to be a large storm impacting a large number of people with several different kinds of hazards, including well inland in places like mountainous areas of West Virginia, some heavy snowfall. But the coastal impacts are going to be the storm surge, for which several areas have been ordered to evacuate, and the strong winds, hurricane force even, especially in gusts at the coast, and then the rainfall moving well inland. This is not just going to be a coastal event. A lot of people are going to be impacted, and a slow mover over the next few days.
Now, I've watched you cover storms like this for a long time. Rick, tell me, rank this one for me in that list of storms that will go down as in top 5, top 10 storms. Where do you place this storm in its strength and its damage?
You know, in reality, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to rank storms overall because every storm is different. This is coming in on a track with a structure and intensity that we haven't seen exactly before. And so you could be experiencing something you've never experienced before at your location out of this particular event.
Rick, this thing definitely going on shore, no doubt about it.
Oh, there's no question. This is going to come on shore late tonight, early tomorrow morning. That's when the center of circulation is going to come on shore. But bad weather is already on the coast, and once the bad weather starts in your location, it could last for 2 to 3 days in terms of the lengthy periods of rainfall, strong winds, and at the coastline, the water levels are coming up today, and they're not going to come back down for 2 to 3 days.
It is a rough next couple of days, and it has all the elements. Dr. Rick Knabb, thank you for taking time to give us your expertise. We appreciate it.